Picture this. You're at a Coldplay concert. The Kiss Cam finds you in the crowd, and in that split second, you make a choice that destroys the billion-dollar company you spent years building. That's exactly what could happen to Andy Byron, the CEO of Astronomer, who was just caught on camera embracing someone who wasn't his wife. And here's the kicker. It wasn't just anyone. It was Kristen Cabot, his company's head of HR. So what started as a moment of poor judgment has become a masterclass, in my opinion, on how personal decisions can legally demolish everything you've worked for. And this is something I teach entrepreneurs all the time. So if you're an entrepreneur, you have to understand these consequences before they happen to you. You have to learn from the mistakes of others. That's what I teach. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 3 massive legal ticking time bombs that this scandal has triggered. Because when you're building a company, your personal life is not personal anymore. So let's talk about something that most entrepreneurs never see coming, the business divorce. That's legal issue number 1, because business is war. I tell you guys all the time, it's not cupcakes, it's not unicorns. I've seen it firsthand, so trust me. It makes a marital divorce look like a friendly handshake. Andy Byron built Astronomer into a $1.3 billion AI company. But the moment that Kiss Cam footage went viral, his personal life crashed directly into his cap table. And here's what's most terrifying for any founder. When you get divorced as a startup CEO, your spouse doesn't just get half your house, they can get half your business. Now remember, they're your partner, and they get the legal rights to dig into your business, and they can dig deep the entire business. They can look in contracts, meeting minutes. They can depose your partners, go through investor communications. They can depose people. I've done all of that. And then they can determine what valuations they want, so they can take your business. Everything you can think of goes down in family court. And what's even worse, Byron's affair includes another married person, Kristen Cabot. So now we're looking at 2 potential divorces, which means 2 angry spouses with legal teams, expensive lawyers who can subpoena confidential company information we can't look at. They can pull apart the business, exposing other partners. Who knows what's going on in this business, right? They can bring employees into court to testify. They can look at documents, email, text messages, where they're spending their money. This is a disaster, and it's going to be huge, and it's all getting into family court, and the entire business gets exposed. You never want to be a part of it. You never want to see it. Can you imagine getting your business dragged into court and having your records torn apart? How fun does that sound, right? Think about what that really means. All of your personal business information now becomes available in family court, scrutinized by angry spouses, expensive lawyers, judges, and forensic experts. I've been there. I've seen it firsthand, and it's a complete nightmare. And here's the brutal truth. Startup equity isn't liquid. There's no market to go and buy it from. You can't just write a check and make the problem go away. You can't just put it in the open market and someone pays for it, right? It's a speculative asset, which means you got to bring in forensic accountants and experts who are so expensive. Now you add the price of the lawyer and the uncertainty of what happens in court. It's a disaster. I've seen it. I'm telling you. The whole point of this is to keep you guys out of court. Now, your investors, they didn't sign up to have their private business dealings exposed in a divorce court and be humiliated like this, right? Your employees didn't agree to have their stock options scrutinized as evidence in family court. And think about all the potential witnesses that are going to come to court now and testify as to this relationship. So now guess what? Your business partners, they also could be exposed. But that's exactly what happens when your personal decisions collide with business reality. So enough with the nasty business divorce stuff. Let's start talking about some fiduciary duties. This is ticking time bomb number 2. As a CEO, you owe what are called fiduciary duties to the company. And this is something that every entrepreneur really needs to understand. Because the moment you become a CEO, you're not just another employee making bad dating choices. You owe the company legal duties. A fiduciary duty means a legal obligation that has to put your company's interests above your own and above anyone else. So you owe this duty to shareholders, to investors, to your employees, to your board. There are duties of care, duties of loyalty. And guess what? I've seen this all day long. I've argued this in court. I've put these in complaints. These duties are implied. You don't need a contract. They're implied by law, meaning the court is going to find them. So when Andy Byron, as the CEO, engages in a public affair with the head of his HR, he's not just having a relationship. He could be violating the fiduciary duty, not putting his company's interests above his. And that's a big, big problem. And that gives shareholders the right to sue. And it's all based on damages. And here's how he could be damaging the company. First, he's created reputational risk. The moment that video went viral, Astronomer's brand was damaged, right? Potential customers, partners, and future investors are now associating the company with the kissy cam. And that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm sure the partners and investors don't appreciate that. Now, second, he's exposing the company to legal liability. Every HR policy he helped create, every sexual harassment training he approved, the head of HR who he appointed, every professional conduct standard the company enforced, he just undermined all of that, and he's the person at the top, and that's why he resigned before they could fire him and take away his money. Third, he's compromising business judgment. How can the CEO make objective decisions about HR policies when he's banging the head of HR, right? Come on, this is as bad as it gets. So here's what most founders don't realize. Boards can fire CEOs for cause when they breach fiduciary duties. And I put stuff in contracts, lets them take equity away. And for cause termination isn't about just losing your job. It's losing your equity. Like I said, your uninvested stock options, your severance package, everything. Byron was smart. He resigned quickly before he could be fired. But imagine if the board had terminated him for cause, all because of decisions that had nothing to do with business performance. And here's the third massive legal fallout that makes every employment lawyer get a hard on. Andy Byron was caught banging the head of HR. It doesn't get better than this from a legal point of view, right? Let that sink in. That's the person who's responsible for preventing workplace relationships, investigating harassment complaints, and enforcing professional conduct policies. They're having an affair with the CEO. It's like the head of the police department having an affair with the head of internal affairs. Now, this creates what lawyers call a conflict of interest. It's so severe, it undermines the entire compliance structure. It makes the whole company look like a sham, and the legal exposure is going to be massive, right? First, there's favoritism issues. Did Cabot receive better compensation, promotions, or other opportunities because of her relationship with Byron? Perhaps. Discovery will tell. You can get those subpoenas. I've done it. It's ugly. Every employee can now question whether they were passed over for advancement because they weren't sleeping with the boss, right? Second, there's the hostile environment claim waiting to happen. This one's expensive and lawyers love to jump on this. Other employees can now argue that reporting harassment or misconduct felt unsafe, right? Because the person who they had to report to was compromising the very policies that she was supposed to enforce. And I'm sure they knew what was going on, right? Third, there's the cover-up of liability because let's be honest, other people at Astronomer probably knew about this relationship, and we will learn through depositions. When leadership knows about policy violations and doesn't act, that's not just bad management, that's legal negligence. It could be reckless behavior, but you know what it is? It's certainly liability. Here's the kicker. Even if the relationship was completely consensual, which I'm sure it was, even if no company policies were technically violated, the appearance of impropriety is enough to create legal liability. Every employment lawsuit that Astronomer faces from here forward will include questions about whether a company has a pattern of allowing inappropriate relationships. They can subpoena witnesses who are basically now everyone in the company and question them about this relationship. Now the company's entire HR credibility is shot, and that's not just a management problem. That's a litigation magnet that's going to cost millions of dollars in settlements and legal fees, all in divorce court where all of these records are coming in. So what's the lesson here that every entrepreneur watching this has to learn? Because this is what it's all about, right? When you build a company, when you take investor money, when you become the face of a startup, when you're the CEO, your personal life is company property. It sounds harsh, but that's the reality of the situation. That's the advice that I'm giving who sees the cup half empty. Your judgment, your reputation, your personal decisions, they're all strategic assets now, and they all can become strategic liabilities. You can't say this is my personal life when your personal choices can trigger lawsuits, damage investor confidence, and expose confidential business information through divorce proceedings. I say this all the time. Your spouse can become one of your biggest enemies in business. Every relationship you pursue, every decision you make, every public appearance you attend, you have to start asking yourself, this went wrong. Could it destroy what I've built? This is kind of using inversion, right? What Charlie Munger and Alex Hormozi do, because here's what Andy Byron probably didn't think about when he was at that Coldplay concert doing the kissy cam thing. One moment of poor judgment could unravel years of brilliant execution. I'm sure he regrets what he did, and I'm not talking about the morality of it. The legal bills alone from the scandal is going to cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. The business disruption, the management distraction, the reputational damage, that's worth millions. It's priceless, actually. And the personal cost to everyone involved, it's incalculable. The pain and suffering that's going to happen. That's why I try to teach you from the mistakes of others. And this is like classic business defense stuff that I'm talking about, right? So the next time you see a kiss cam, remember the $1 billion lesson from Astronomer. When you're building something bigger than yourself, everything you do affects more than just you. So if you're an entrepreneur, protect your company like you would protect your baby, because it only takes one viral moment to go down from unicorn to cautionary tale. So hit subscribe if you want more real-world legal lessons from startup failures, because learning from other people's mistakes is a lot cheaper than making your own, getting dragged through court, and doing all the shit that I've seen for the last 20 years. So I'm the battle-tested lawyer. Stay legally bulletproof.